I know you and I have been chatting about a whole bunch of different industries and what you're seeing there. There is one that I want to talk about, and you know, I think it's not a yet clearly understood part of the industry, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest drivers of what will reshape our world going forward, and that's 5G.
Sure.
And wanted to get your thoughts on what are some of the things that you see will impact businesses, but also consumers,
Sure.
And industry as a whole.
5G is an interesting topic because most of the telecommunication companies around the world were beginning to do a rollout of 5G as the pandemic set in. The pandemic did not stop that, but it muted the, if I may, the noise around 5G. It began as a consumer-based initiative. You saw a lot of the phone makers and then the carriers talk about 5G capability, and then obviously the topics of, you'd be able to get a faster download of your movie, or do a better teleconference, or be able to make your operating system pull data in at a higher rate so you could become a more efficient application. All very good and very important, but 5G really isn't about the consumer. And one of the most important points is, I don't think the consumer could pay for 5G if the burden was put singularly across the consumer market. What 5G really is about is the transformation of telecommunications. It's going to be bringing a whole new landscape of business-to-business capabilities, and by the way applications and services run out in the cloud and on the edge to compute. And ultimately, you're going to see 5G transform the way things are done, like parking and metering systems, and how they do traffic control and weather systems. A lot of things that do impact consumers, but not directly pinned into consumer application infrastructure, which of course will benefit from 5G. So as it moves and it becomes more apparent in the infrastructure that surrounds all of us in different countries, and at this point, it's not even available in the same places in countries.
Yeah.
But you'll begin to see this propagate out. And probably as we see this move, we're all going to start talking about 6G and something that goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So exciting, high impact. It's going to service the consumer and the business, and most importantly, the innovation that it will drive because of the service that it will provide with regards to speed and the ability to drive applications. I think it's going to be just another landscape of opportunity, not just for telecommunication companies, but any company that uses telecommunications to drive their business.
I couldn't agree more, Garrett. I mean, if you think about all the industries, and we were chatting about some of these industries earlier, whether it's healthcare, education, just think about how that's going to transform. We talk about technologies like AI and digital twins and robotics, but then you start to bring in, you start to bring in edge computing. And all of this, when you mesh together, has a transformational impact across industries. Now, on that note, I'm actually going to segue to one of your partners,
Sure.
SiteC. They're a very innovative AI digital twin robotics company that's transforming the telecoms infrastructure segment. And we know that that's the rails that innovation is going to sit on, the telecoms infrastructure with 5G. So we're going to have a chat with Lucio, who's the CEO and co-founder of SiteC. And we're going to talk exactly about what they're doing and what they're seeing in the telecom sector. So have we got Lucio? Welcome, Lucio. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Amit. Hello, Amit. Hello, Garrett.
Yeah, great to have you join us, Lucio. I mean, of course, you're very familiar with Oracle. They've been a big part of your support structure in your journey. So welcome to this conversation. We're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how your industry is transforming.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to sharing some insight of how a tech startup is dealing or taking advantage of this big change that you mentioned, 5G. It's a change not just for the consumer, but in ways that you probably didn't realize is affecting the telco and the other infrastructure assets. So, and that's where we deal and solving problems, and we're applying our innovation to that space.
Pretty much all the technologies we talk about shaping the future, you've got those sort of part of your roadmap. And I would imagine when you started off, even looking at technologies like digital twin, it meant it was so different from what we see it as today. When I think about digital twin, like 5 years ago, to me in my head, I'd visualize it as like a visual blueprint, and then you're basically mapping that into a digital record, right? But it's a lot more than that, Lucio. So I'd love to hear your story, your journey, and what you've had to go through to drive your technology roadmap.
So you really nailed it there, Amit. 5 years ago, digital twins were around, and there was really around the concept of like an updatable blueprint of a building. But when you started to think about it, buildings are large and they have lots of different touch points, lots of different piping. What happens when the piping changes? How do you resurvey it to get an accurate digital twin? Well, 5 years ago, there was no solution to that. A human would have had to somehow manually scan the site. Fast forward 5 years, we solved that problem by merging AI and ML to automatically update that digital twin without having any human interaction. So we're really taking the friction out of how that digital twin was reconstructed to allow the digital twin to be up to date and accurate.
In terms of, I guess, the 5G transformational roadmap that Garrett was talking about earlier, just to pick up on that point, I mean, what are some of the biggest changes in the infrastructure roadmaps that you foresee for telcos as they start to expand and start to build that infrastructure?
So the real word there is roadmap, right? So 5G is going to be at least a decade to roll out, right? Mm-hmm. It is a significant investment from everyone. And one of the simplest problems that when you deal with so many pieces of infrastructure, so to give you an idea, there's roughly 2.5 million cell towers around the world, right? And every one of those is going to be touched or updated multiple times between now and the final rollout of 5G. So you just think of that scale. On each tower, there's 70 to 80 pieces of equipment, and most of those are going to be upgraded from a 4G to a 5G network. And that's astoundingly complicated, right? Because it's been done the same way for 30 years. And this opportunity for 5G rollout is really compressing and really touching on what Garrett said. It's expensive. And there needs to be savings made, and that's where Site comes in, where we're really reducing that cost of the upgrade by doing something really basic, by understanding what is on the cell tower right now automatically with AI and machine learning. And that is the big transformation that's allowing the rollout to advance very, very quickly.
And that's a very beautiful locale for a cell tower. Is there really a cell tower blocking that sort of view? Is that a real picture there, Lucio?
That's our customer's picture from the Caribbean. It's a magnificent site, and I use it as a backdrop, but that's real.
Yeah. And I'm sure every engineer would want to go and service that cell site, right? But most of the cell sites aren't really as beautiful, right? The locales aren't really that beautiful. What does your technology do? What do you guys do that changes the way companies maintain and manage these sites? Because a lot of them really are not as pretty as this.
So this is a really good example of it. If you could see behind me, it's quite a complicated and busy site. So that means there's lots of different operators, lots of different equipment. So you could imagine when there needs to be an upgrade from one piece of equipment, it's going to reflect the tower owner, how much load is going on the tower, and also everyone else on the tower. Have they got a spot to design and put their correct aperture or the correct piece of equipment to benefit their customers in the best way? Now, I'm sure every engineer would love to come out to site, but coming out the site is expensive and time consuming. So we take that away and allow them to make their designs and their decisions from a desktop. So we would create a digital twin of this on this beautiful environment, and they can do all that work from the desktop. They understand each piece of equipment, its bearing, its height, and understand exactly how to upgrade that site.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Garrett and Lucio. That was a fascinating conversation. What I took away from what I heard between the both of you, and obviously you've been working together, or your companies have been working together on this, is these sort of partnerships bring innovation to scale. And that's what we need to see to transform industries. So once again, thank you for joining us for this session with Garrett and Lucio. And we look forward to having many more conversations around industry transformation.